So there was these bookshelves in the day room area that kind of sit in between the phones and the stairs to go back up to the second tier. And they had all different kinds of religious books and self-help books. And just depending on, what deputy was working, you didn't know if you could go by and grab one on your way up and take it back to your cubby. So, I mean, it was like they were, each deputy, no matter what the rules were, had their own rules. Some of them may let you get away with one thing, but then another one may just run a tight ship and you can't do anything. And um, I was laying across the bed and still thinking about the conditions. I had been there for over a week and I still had not had a change of clothes or underwear or socks. And, I went up to the deputy to kind of state that, hey, listen, I was brought in on Wednesday and, it's Wednesday and I have not had a change of clothes. And so she said, well, let me just see what we can do. Blues came in on one day, and then another day of the week, you got to exchange your gown, socks, underwear, and sports bra and hand towel that you used to dry off with. So, um, anyway, I went upstairs and I was, laying there thinking about the conditions. And again, lack of exercise, no sunlight, the fluorescent lighting. And I knew that for years, studies had shown that fluorescent lighting will heighten symptoms of depression and anxiety. And then the flickering can cause migraines and seizures. And so, now you have a system just full of traumatized inmates being more traumatized. And I know I keep mentioning this throughout my story, but it's so pertinent, to what's going on in there. And when you're on lockdown and you're in that cubby, all you have is your mind to think and maybe a book to read and some stationery. So, you just start asking yourself about the lack of empathy around the justice system and then the people that are incarcerated, and then how many people on the outside that weren't used to being arrested or being part of that system really knew what was going on and the severity of it all. And then them not doing anything or having a voice for these women or men. Um, so as I was laying there, I heard two girls whispering over in the cubbies, probably 5 down from me. And depending on who was working, the rule was you weren't supposed to be in anybody else's cubby. But these two women were kind of sitting um, catty cornered with each other in their cubbies. I mean, one was in one's cubby just a little bit, and they were talking. One was upset. I mean, it wasn't really a big deal. I didn't think anything about it. So I heard the deputy coming up the stairs, and I could hear her keys. And when she got to the second tier, she walked over to the cubby to the two women that were talking and whispering. And she was like, "What the fuck is this?" So I raised my head up and I watched as the deputy just began screaming. And she was just irate. And one of the women said, "Hey, listen, deputy, she was just upset. I'm just trying to talk to her." And I could just feel my heart racing because there was somebody in trouble and there was nothing I could do about it. And my energy was just feeling this danger, danger, danger. She said, I don't play this fucking shit. And she said, I'm getting some trash bags right now. She said, I want the both of you to put all your shit in and be ready to go back to a holding cell. she stood over them with all this overpowering authority. And I could tell the women had been there for a while because of all of the personal property that they were placed in their trash bags, letters, pictures, pencils, just things that they had been sent to them. And she watched as they packed up their stuff and tried to continue to explain what happened, and begging and pleading, please. I was just trying to comfort her. She was just trying to talk. I was just trying to listen. She's upset. She said, shut up. I don't want to hear another fucking word. She said, you've got about 5 more minutes to get everything out and out of here and roll it up. So they were both finishing gathering their things and rolling up their or rolling up their blankets off the mat. And as they were walking from their cubbies, the deputy took one of the trash bags and she threw it over the railing. And it landed, from that second tier onto that concrete floor at the bottom in the day room. And the sound of just hearing their personal items break created this immense feeling of anger within me. And I thought, what a cold bitch. How could she destroy everything that they had? She said, now go on. She said, follow me. She said, the both of you are out of here. And all I could think about was them having to go back into a holding cell that I had just came from 2 days prior. And going right back into that. And she walked them out. And then she come back in and, started screaming, line up for chow. So we all went down to the day room area and lined up against the wall. And the deputy had each inmate count in order for her to do a head count. So it was like 1, 2, 3, and everybody went down the line saying their number. She said, okay, let's go. No talking, keep moving forward. Well, I was walking with my hands kind of behind my back, like they were still in cuffs, and, with my head down. And one of the inmates said, hey, she said, girl, she said, you don't have to walk with your hands behind your back like you're still cuffed. She said, don't do that, girl. She said, let your hands be free. And I just thought, that was a sweet thing to say and an observation to make. And I don't, I think it's just a subconscious way of walking, hands behind your back when you've been locked up. Anyway, so after that, I tried to be more aware of my posture and, let my hands be in front of me or beside me instead of back behind my back. And then I thought, they're just we're walking and to Chow Hall, and we have a good 10 minutes in the sun and fresh air. And I just kept thinking there had to be a deeper spiritual reasoning for me to be wrongly accused of a felon fugitive charge and being locked down just outside of San Diego, California. How could jail be a part of the initiation to my spiritual journey? And I knew my soul was lost. And I knew I'd not given myself the trust that my heart needed to be guided on purpose. I knew for years that I was called to earth as a healer. And maybe this was the final initiation process. And for years, I had been reading about traumatic events, being part of a shaman's or sages or a healers or a prophet or devotee or disciple. It's just part of their path. Like they kind of have to go through something real hard a lot of times. And then even being incarcerated is part of their journey that they choose to be here. And so that led me back to another memory of when I was in Mexico, back, a month prior, and I was on an island and there was a hawk on a tree branch, and I was laying on the sand in the sun, and this hawk was speaking to me, And the hawk was saying, the spirit of the shaman awaits you. And so I kept thinking that hawk had a message. And was it the Christ spirit calling me back like the lost sheep I had become? You know, this was the part almost of the awakening of me being Jonah. You know, me being pushed out of my comfort zone and into this whale's belly, which was this detention center, and all the work being done to me that needed to be done there before spitting me out in another place where I was called to be because I had been running. And then I came back into presently walking on that path to the chow hall, and I had a lot of anxiety going in there because it would just get overwhelming with everybody in there and all the noise. And, you know, hundreds of women's pain was just radiating in that environment, and I could feel it. And so, but I mean, I had to deal with it. And I was sitting there, and it was just so hard for me not to give away the food that I was not going to eat. And I took my tray and I walked over to the tables, and the deputy motioned for me to sit down. And it was more of red bologna sandwiches, a black bean soup, which was better than nothing, and an apple. And, you know, one of the women whispered, "Hey, are you going to eat that apple?" And I said, "No." I said, "You can have it." And so I slid my apple across the table to this older Hispanic woman. And she took the apple, she looked around to make sure that nobody was looking, and then she stuffed it in her sports bra. And there was just a lot of women in there that were not given extra money or any money for commissary or extra food. And so, again, you know, you're caught doing that. That's another charge. And, you know, then I started thinking, when your basic needs aren't being met, eating, you know, you'll do whatever the hell you need to do to survive. And it led me into a deeper thought about most of those women in that detention center were there due to committing what society calls crimes in order to meet basic needs, survive trauma, or find a place of shelter. And then it was, okay, ladies, get up and put your stuff away and get outside in line, and no talking. So as I walked out in the sunshine, I just took in, again, as much nature as I could. And I watched the white clouds move softly across that blue California sky. I let the sun warm my cheeks. I listened to a bird sing its song. And I took in long, deep breaths of fresh air, while canceling out all the noise from the women talking around me. As I was standing there, I tried to be discreet about taking my hand and running it around the front of my shirt to feel how much weight I had lost. And I have an overthinking mind, and people who know me know this about me. And all I could think about in that moment was the fear of being in there so long that I would starve to death. That was my greatest fear. And we all started walking back to the dorm in our blues and orange flip-flops. And halfway on our walk, I saw some bunny rabbits. And they were just kind of sitting on the grass, eating some green vegetation. No worry in the world. And they didn't care while we were in there. And I just wanted to sit on that grass and spend some time watching nature a little bit more. And I never knew if, you know, I'd be coming out at 4 p.m. For dinner, because if you were on lockdown in this walk-in dorm, you didn't get to go walk to have, you know, lunch or dinner. You would have to eat it inside your cubby. And so I just tried to take in, when I did get that chance, as much as I could. And it was 1 o'clock. I laid down across the bed. I covered my ears with my sweatshirt. And all that processed food with fillers and carbs, it made me so sleepy. I just drifted off, and then I experienced another memory in my family. My grandmother would go through periods of cleaning out her drawers and closets and passing things along to my mom that she didn't want. But my mom would take it anyway, because my grandmother always be like, just take it, just take it. I don't want it. It'll look good on you. That looks nice. Wear it. And so my mom would take it. Well, there was this woman on the side of town that we lived on that had sort of like a consignment shop, or not, or like a thrift store. And her name was Kathy. Well, Kathy would take the donations and resell them. And so my mom didn't believe in throwing away the clothes, so she would take them down to Kathy's and donate them. And then my grandmother would love shopping at thrift stores and finding good buys, is what she would call it. And so she went to Kathy's thrift store one day to do some shopping and looking around. And after several hours, she took some clothes that she'd wanted to buy and handed Kathy to pay for. Thanksgiving Day rolls around, and we show up at my grandmom's and granddad's to eat. And when my mom opened the door, there was my grandmother standing there in the kitchen wearing this Georgia Bulldog sweatshirt that she had given my mom, and my mom had donated. And she said, Mama, where'd you get that sweatshirt? And my grandmother said, down there at Kathy's. And my mom just kept entering the kitchen while laughing. Grandmom's shop, not even remember what she had and what she was buying back that was originally hers. And so we laughed about that for years. I came to, and I heard day room is open. So it was, around 2 o'clock, and I wanted to know why I was not on a plane headed back to Georgia. And I paced a lot that day. And one of the women came up to me, and she said, I can tell you're under so much emotional stress, she said, and feeling trapped about what's happening. She said, and I said, do you know how I can find out when they're going to let me go home? And she said, yeah, girl. She said, come here. She said, fill out this inmate request and then put it in that box. She said, I'll show you how to do it. So there was a section on the form and where you put your name, your booking number, the date of birth, the housing unit you were in, and then next to it was a request you wanted to give. And so I said, and it said attention booking, my name is Brittany Weeks, and I'm trying to find out what day I will be extradited and be brought back to Georgia. I said I signed a waiver on Friday, and I still haven't heard anything. So she took me over to the metal box where there was a slot to drop it in. And then about 2 days later, I get the reply. And it's very vague. When they notify us that you're going to be transferred or picked up, you'll be notified. And I'm like, fuck you. All these unanswered questions, and no one can tell me anything. And I was just starting to get more and more angry. One of the things that was happening when I was in this walk-in dorm is people were asking some of the inmates, where are you from? We love that accent. Talk again. And Georgia. So my nickname was Georgia. And so instead of them saying Brit, it was, hey, Georgia. Hey, Georgia. And that stuck with me for the time that I was there. And I go down to the day room phone again, and I'm still calling back home, calling my dad, calling my sister. It's the same old song and dance. Has anybody heard anything? No, we're trying to get in touch with your attorney. What's he saying? It shouldn't be too much longer. It was a hamster wheel every day with what I was trying to find out. And in the meantime, I'm trying to get clean clothes.